Okay, it's a great time to be in IT, especially in the Philippines. There's the Philippine software industry and the IT industry in the Philippines in general is really growing really fast. Its average industry growth is almost 30% compared to the global growth of 12%. So it's really growing really fast. There's so many opportunities that are opening up in the local industry. And last year, we even surpassed our our average. We grew 37%, and we made almost $1 billion, even if our head count is not that big. It's 50,000 people. Okay, so this is just the revenue for export. We're not even talking about the internal software development and the IT work that's being done inside banks, inside airlines, inside large corporations. So there's a lot of opportunities in IT. There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of jobs. Globally, if you track since the 70s, the global software industry, the global IT industry has been growing. In almost every 10 years, it grows by several times. There's always a huge growth in the industry and a huge demand on IT professionals. Every time there's a new wave of innovation. Okay, so from mainframes to desktops to the internet to mobile, social networking, and in the future, Internet of Things, where everything will have internet-enabled device, from your clothes to your coffee maker to your car to the streets to your appliances, buildings, cities. There's an incredible amount of opportunities. Okay, different types of work exist here in the Philippines. A large portion of the software work is application maintenance. You join a company and then you maintain existing software. But there's also a lot of work in quality assurance. There's systems development where you create new software, create new features to existing software. For those that are more on the business side, as opposed to the technical side, there's opportunities for business analysis and project management. Opportunities if you're more in administering systems administration and support. For those that are more onto the aesthetics and usability, user experience and user interface design. And then there's embedded programming, there's game development, there's a lot of interesting fields. So regardless of what your talents and inclinations are, there's a lot of opportunities in the IT industry. And our top problem is talent. Now, this slide, I'm going to be saying some things that maybe, there's a lot of opportunities, but there's also some things that might be a little tough for you guys to hear, especially, you guys are students, you're still studying in schools, and some of you here are faculty. So there's a prevailing myth that IT is oversubscribed. But actually, the only thing holding back the growth of our industry, even if it's already growing very rapidly. The only thing holding it back even faster, to grow even faster, is the lack of skilled people. Okay, so it's not true that IT is oversubscribed. You guys have good opportunities after work if you have the right skills. So this myth has led to a decreasing enrollment in IT courses. So I don't know why people are still taking nursing. So that's certainly oversubscribed. But IT, it's not oversubscribed, even if people are taking less. Especially in computer science. And we really need more programmers, hardcore programmers. But there's less enrollment in computer science. And then here's one of the saddest things. Most schools do not teach employable skills. I've been around, I've been visiting different schools. And sadly, I don't know what schools you come from and who your faculty. But sadly, when I meet with a lot of faculty, a lot of the stuff they're teaching their students aren't preparing them for the jobs that are available. So there's a mismatch. So you have this statistic where we graduate tens of thousands of IT graduates every year, but a lot of them can't find jobs because there's a mismatch in what they're taking up in school versus what the industry needs. Okay. So the good news is that everything you really need to learn is on the internet. So I've met people You know, sometimes the school they came from I've never heard of. Pero ang galing nila. And I hire them, and then they meet their potential, and they're excellent software developers. And it's because they didn't learn what they learned in school. Even the people who come from what might be the schools with the biggest reputations, the best developers, they learn what they learned on the internet, and then they find ways to practice what they learned. They talk to an uncle with a sari store or something, and they try to develop a system so that they can practice what they learned on the internet. So there's no excuse regardless of where you're studying. I've got in Orange and Brownsville, we've got software engineers from different schools, from the top schools in Manila to schools that that maybe I've only heard of when they applied. We've got some guy from Stanford University. And pantay-pantay, kung magaling ka, if for as long as you've taken the time to learn and practice these skills, it doesn't really matter where you went to school, okay? So let's talk about specific skills, specific programming languages and their trends. So it's a good thing Naveen introduced, gave a talk about Java, because right now there's not enough statistics in the Philippines, so I had to use statistics in the US, but the latest statistics on programming languages, Java is still the top language to learn, okay? And then next, after that, there's Ruby, there's Objective-C if you want to do iPhone programming, okay? One interesting opportunity that I think a lot of companies miss out, in the Philippines, there's not too many companies that are doing Python programming, but there's a lot of opportunities there. I only know one company in Davao that's doing a lot of great business in Python, doing software development in Python. And that's one of the business opportunities that I think the Philippines is missing out. Pero Java, Ruby, and Objective-C about the same. So the statistics here are more or less reflective of the demand also in the Philippines. Okay, C# and Python about tied. JavaScript there's a lot of demand. COBOL, your daddy's programming language, is still around. Visual Basic. One of the things I'm worried about, one of the things I usually critique when I talk to faculties of different schools, is when they go to web, they teach PHP. Okay, so there's more to programming than PHP, web programming than PHP. You can do web programming in dozens and dozens of other languages. I don't see why you have to do it in PHP. Okay, so if you're going to do web programming, try to use another language. Try to use another platform to develop, to practice web development, because the demand for the other languages are a little higher than PHP. I think the supply versus demand of PHP is a little skewed. Okay, stop learning drag and drop programming. Okay. That's not programming if you're dragging and dropping, okay? You need to learn how to write readable code, okay? The reason why code is in an English-like language is because it's meant for other people to read, okay? Code is a way to communicate your intent to other people. So it has to be readable. You have to practice writing code, not just letting a machine auto-generate code for you, okay? So you have to practice how to write readable code, because you're going to be working in teams. Somebody else has to work on your code. Somebody has to read your code. So learn how to write readable code. When I conduct training, and this is something that a client, Cisco is one of our clients. This is one of the things that I learned from a client in Cisco. I teach them the 3-second rule, which means if someone else cannot understand your code in 3 seconds, you have to rewrite your code because it's not readable. Okay, so 3-second rule. So if you have a function or a method that can't be understood by someone else in 3 seconds, that's not readable. Okay. So that means your methods and your classes have to be short. It means your naming has to be clear. It means every method, every class has to have only one responsibility. Hindi yung marami siyang ginagawa. Okay? It means, the converse of single responsibility, separation of concerns. You separate if different things do different. If there are different concerns, they should be in different methods and different classes. In fact, different layers and packages. And you should absolutely avoid duplicate code. So kung yung mga mahilig mag-copy-paste ng code dyan, okay, that's, you gotta disabuse yourself of that habit, okay? So there's a lot more, I just went through some of the major stuff, but there's a lot more. This is, if you're gonna read one book on better coding style, I'd recommend this book, yung Clean Code. At ONB we have a freshman, new graduate that joins us usually has over a dozen books that they need to go through. But this is the first book, okay? So, where to find this book? I'm sure you have creative ways to find this book. Hindi ko na sasabihin kung paano. Magaling naman kayo. So, find this book and read this book. Okay. Operating systems. Dalawa lang naman pag-uusapan natin, di ba? Sa operating systems. Definitely Linux is the better expertise to have. 70% of the server market share is Linux, which makes sense. It's easier to administer Linux remotely. Unlike with Windows na kailangan nasa UI ka, ida-drag mo lang yung mouse, ay, ang tagal bago yung remote server mag-respond. Sige, magkape muna ako. Diba? Better stability, fewer viruses, less patching and rebooting. There's some Linux servers that have never been rebooted for 10 years. Better use of hardware resources, abundance of open source. So if you want to, actually the UP ITTC, yung training center dito sa UP, has a good program on Linux certification, the Linux Professional Institute certification. So tatlong levels yan. I think this is a good place to learn Linux. But again, a lot of people, some of the best Linux people I know, they just installed it on an old machine that nobody's using, and then they started practicing. And they started saying, "Oh, Tito, gawa tayo ng sistema para sa tindahan nyo. Gamitin natin Linux para libre." Now, when I say Linux, I don't mean again point and click, drag and drop Linux, okay? I mean understand how to use the command line. Kasi if you're using a UI, again, ang bagal ng remote administration. In fact, I don't understand why most IT schools today, most schools teaching CS and IT are still, especially CS, are still using Windows for their operating system. Dapat from the very beginning, it should be Linux. Kasi, you get familiar with the tools, you get familiar with administration, the command line. You have to, hindi yung pwedeng natutunan mo lang yung Linux sa isang section ng operating systems class nyo. It's not enough. Windows, it doesn't come with enough development tools, whereas Linux, out of the box, there's development tools, there's free servers that you can use and play with. So now, user experience or user interface analysis and design. I did a search on Indeed.com. So all of these statistics are from Indeed.com. They're US statistics. And user experience professionals are actually making a lot of money, as much money as Java programmers. And what's user experience? It's not just about creating fancy, nice-looking websites. It has a lot of things. It's not just the aesthetics, but it's about understanding how to make something user-friendly, understanding how users interact with machines, understanding what's the objective of the system and how to do it so that the objectives of the system are met because it's easy to use for the user. Okay. This is the book we usually recommend when it comes to user interfaces and user experience. Okay, Don't Make Me Think. So again, user interfaces, it's user experience. It's not just about creating nice designs. Part of it, there's a lot of work. There's about testing the system against with actual test users to see if it works. Okay, so there's a lot of techniques to this. Some of the technical side, on the technical side, some of the skills you can learn on the internet is learning how to write W3C compliant HTML. A lot of people, they learn a little bit of HTML, but they don't know how to make it, but they're not compliant to the W3C standards. Using cascading style sheets instead of everything in a table, okay? Separating the design from the structure. Knowing a little bit of JavaScript and understanding how to use content management systems. Okay. For those who are, and then, I don't know who here has heard of agile software development. Okay, a few. Okay, I did another search on Indeed. If you have, if the job descriptions with agile, on the average, $100,000 a year yung sinesweldo nila. Okay. There's a lot of, there's different schools of agile. So if you talk to different people, they'll define agile as different things. Okay. So let's go back to the Agile Manifesto. Ito yung core beliefs in agile. Individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Working software over comprehensive documentation. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Responding to change over following a plan. Okay, ito yung Agile Manifesto. So, it's a statement of beliefs. It's a philosophy. Okay, so before the actual practices like stand-up meetings and pair programming and things like that, it's about a philosophy. It's about a set of values. It's about an attitude in the way you do things and how you see your peers and your customers, your co-workers. So it's a philosophy meant to simplify and humanize, and that leads to more productivity, more customer satisfaction. And it covers a vast array of things, from the low-level coding techniques all the way to project management, values, and culture. Okay, so it's hard to say what agile is in just a short thing. It's very broad. There's some specific methodologies that you should look up. Again, all of this is in the internet. The most popular school of thought or methodology or framework in agile is Scrum. Next is extreme programming, okay? And then there's a few others for specific needs. So, take time to read up on this. There's a lot of, in fact, a lot of our business right now, we're conducting a lot of training because a lot of companies, they're being encouraged by their customers or their management abroad to adopt Agile. So we conduct a lot of training and coaching for Agile. Some of the practices you might read about is test-driven development, where you write your tests before you write your code, automated tests. And that helps shape the way you write your code. So nagbabago yung pananaw mo sa code mo if you write a test because you have the end in mind before you write your code. You also decouple your code. It also forces you to write code that's decoupled from other pieces of code. Short iterations, which means you create working pieces of software in short sprints, short 2-week cycles instead of waiting 6 months before you release software. Cross-functional teams, sa isang team, my programmers, my analysts, my testers, my project managers, my architects. Hindi yung hiwa-hiwalay na department sila. Continuous integration, retrospectives, just look these up. I'll just talk quickly about my company before we close. So, Orange and Bronze, we want to create a Filipino technology company that's admired by the world. Okay. Ang daming magaling. All my life, ang daming magaling daming talented in the areas of science and technology. I've worked with so many bright people. I'm a graduate of Philippine science, and ang dami kong kaklase na ang tatalino, ang gagaling, and they wanted to do great things. Pero, the thing is, sometimes limited yung opportunities dito sa Pilipinas for science and technology. Buti swerte tayo sa IT. Pero yung other aspects, medyo kulang eh. I had a classmate na molecular biology dito sa UP na gusto niya research kaso hindi siya makahanap ng magandang research opportunities. So, nagbangko na lang siya or something. So, we want to create a Filipino technology company that's admired by the world para makita ng mundo na maraming talent dito sa Pilipinas, and they start, more research-based companies ang mapunta dito. We want to contribute to rebuilding the Filipino technology community. So, from Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, we try to help faculty, we try to contribute to events and things like that. We conduct free training to faculty. We work with PSITE and PSIA. Some of our clients, on the business side, some of our clients, Cisco in the US is a client, Smart is our biggest client here in the Philippines, BDO, PNG, Metrobank. We have also clients in Europe and Australia and Canada. We also provide a lot of training and coaching for a lot of software firms here, HP, Fujitsu, Accenture, MySys Banking System, Smart, Samsung, NetSuite. So we provide a lot of training and coaching, especially in agile software development, Java best practices, enterprise architecture, things like that. You know, again, as I mentioned, the industry-academe linkage, we're very active in trying to support the academe in trying to improve what they're teaching in schools. We also have scholarship. We have 2 scholars in MSU, Mindanao State University. We're looking for more scholars right now from MSU IIT. Our partners, SpringSource and Google, you probably haven't heard of SpringSource. It's more for enterprise side, back-end systems. And of course, you've heard of Google. We're the first company in the country to use and teach Agile. First and still the only SpringSource partner in Southeast Asia and East Asia. We were awarded in 2011 Human Assets Award. So we have the best training for developers in the country, highest engineering standards, excellent trainers and mentors, challenging projects, and we also encourage technopreneurship. So here are ways to keep in touch with us. If you want to apply, send your resume to careers at Orange and Bronze, or if you want to be an intern, if you want to be an OJT, careers at Orange and Bronze. Follow us on Facebook or Twitter, or you can also view our online magazine at orangeandbronze.com/the Orange Org Chart. Okay, so these are ways to stay in touch with us. Okay, so yun.
Okay, ayun. So,